Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we are joined by our good friend Drew from the Pick a Side podcast. We just had Joel on a couple episodes ago talking about the AFC East and his Jets. Today we're going to bring Drew on to talk about the AFC West, including his beloved Broncos, who I think we can all agree are in for a great season. So before we get into all of that, Drew, how we doing today, man?
Doing pretty great. Obviously excited to talk about the division. I feel like I'm a lot more optimistic about my Broncos. Let me say cautiously optimistic, of course, because of the preseason, what I've been seeing from my potential franchise quarterback, Mr. Bo Nix. And Sean Payne, we trust. I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys having me, and I'm excited to chop it up.
Of course, man. Always a delight. We also had Drew on and all the Pick a Side guys except for Joel, actually, for trivia earlier in the summer if you want to check that out. We teamed up at the BDGE live trivia competition. That's all on their channel. So there's more Nerd Sesh Drew content than you guys probably know what to do with. But today, we're talking football, and we'll start at the top of the division as we always do. And Drew, as our honored guest, will go to you first. Who do you have winning the AFC West?
I wish so terribly bad I never had to speak on this team. But obviously, as a content creator, you got a job to do. Of course, I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the top dog. This is not only just the top dog in the AFC West, but, of course, I'm talking about the entire National Football League. You got the king, Patrick Mahomes. Again, it kills me to say everything that I'm about to say, but he's probably the best quarterback that I've ever seen with my two eyes. And the fact that they were able to win a Super Bowl last year with the offense that they did have, with the lack of talent on the offensive side, you still won the whole thing. To me, the sky's the limit, especially when you go and you use a first-round pick on Xavier Worthy. You bring in Hollywood Brown, although he is banged up already. But Rashee Rice, to me, is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the National Football League. Fourth in terms of yards after the catch. Top 10 in yards per route run. I believe Rashee Rice is severely underrated. And, of course, Travis Kelce, it helps that he's still the best tight end in the league, regardless of being the age 34. Awesome offensive line. The defensive side of the ball, you lose L'Jarius Sneed, but, of course, Trent McDuffie was an all-pro in his own right. He's going to be fantastic regardless. I love, of course, that this defense – let me not say I love. It's obviously super unfortunate that this defense is as great as it is, but – you got to respect the fact that you've moved on from Charvarius Ward. You've moved on from L'Jarius Sneed, and it doesn't matter because you still have an elite talent at the cornerback position. So I have to give credit where credit is due. This defensive line still awesome. George Karlaftis, another year of development, was really strong last year. You put him in the middle where Chris Jones is there, and he's arguably the best. Now forget about arguably, he is the best defensive tackle in football now that Aaron Donald has retired. There's just so much to, if you're me, not like, but if you're a Chiefs fan, like about this roster. I have them going 12-5, but they will be the division winners once again.
Yeah, I agree. I have them going 11-6, and it's funny because last season had to be the floor for the Chiefs. They still win 10 games. You got Kadarius Toney handing games away. You got MVS letting games slip through his hands. You got, weird freak losses to the Raiders and Broncos. And they still won the Super Bowl. 4 Super Bowl appearances in 5 years, 3 Super Bowl victories in 5 years. And like you said, you ask what changed. You bring back Mahomes, Kelce, Chris Jones, the building blocks. You still have Andy Reid. You still have Matt Nagy. You still have Spags. So, yeah, I expect the Chiefs to be on top. And it's kind of hard predicting anyone to dethrone them this year. I am going to take the Ravens out of the AFC just because I think the Derrick Henry acquisition is so massive. But the Chiefs are going to be in the competition once again to win the Super Bowl. Mahomes has the second highest winning percentage in NFL history. As you mentioned, Drew, you bring in home run hitters and Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, and I think that's huge, right? Like, you have Kelce and Rashee Rice. They give you that awesome baseline for your offense. You still have Pacheco. Those guys can just take you over the top. You can hit those big shot plays that you didn't have last year because you have scrubs on the outside like MVS and Toney, and now you have actual guys who can just burn defenses. They were the number 2 scoring defense last year. The only changes, as you mentioned, Drew, you lose Sneed, you lose Willie Gay. The rest of the defense is still going to be great. You got Chris Jones, you got McDuffie, you got Karlaftis. Like, what changed? Nothing really. Like, I don't have a ton on the Chiefs, man. This is a awesome defense. This is the best quarterback I've ever seen. It's an elite coaching staff. They're great in the trenches. I think that we could see this defense take a little bit of a step back from how elite they were last year. But in that same breath, I don't expect this offense to be as catastrophically bad as they were last year. So I think it's going to balance itself out in some ways, and the Chiefs are going to be one of the top 3 contenders in the NFL. Again, I'm taking the Ravens slightly because I like the Derrick Henry acquisition so much, but the Chiefs are still probably 2 for me in the AFC, and it's hard to pick against Pat and them with their track record.
It is really hard to pick against them, man, and I do not think it's unreasonable to say that we should expect this to be the best Chiefs team that we have seen. I think that this is absolutely the most complete Chiefs team that we have seen. When you think about the fact that last year was easily the best defense of the Mahomes era, arguably the best defense in football, especially with the level that they played at in the postseason, but throughout the regular season as well, we're talking about a team that was elite up front, elite in terms of pressure rate. I do think that they'll take a bit of a step back this year with the Snead loss especially. I think Brian Cook starting at safety is also something of a question mark. But overall, I still really like this defense, and I especially really like the front seven. And it's arguably the most balanced, complete offense that we've seen in the Mahomes era. Nothing will compare in terms of explosiveness to Mahomes' first season as a starter when they're averaging 35 a game, and nothing will ever compare to the dynamic duo that you had with peak Tyreek and peak Travis Kelce. But when you think about the totality of a really strong offensive line, a run game that is really quite established with the best running back that we've seen of Mahomes' career as a starter in Isaiah Pacheco, and a receiving room that is arguably as deep and well-rounded as any that we've seen. You can look back to 2019 when they still had Tyreek and Kelce, and they had Sammy Watkins, who was a really good third target. But I really, really like the Hollywood and Worthy additions, and I think Logan hit on it. The one thing that has been missing from this offense since Tyreek left has been those guys who threaten the defense vertically downfield, guys who have big-time speed, guys who are big-time playmakers, because you already have reliable down-to-down possession guys with Kelce and Rashee Rice. But we have just seen this offense become less and less aggressive, less and less explosive, still very good, but not hitting those home runs in the same way. Mahomes attempted under 3,900 air yards last year. That number was at 4,700 just 1 year prior. And now you have 2 speedsters who are built to help take the top off of defenses like that. And you just have more capable receivers overall, for God's sakes. I mean, Logan mentioned it, but you look at last year and it's like Kadarius Toney single-handedly, 100% lost them 2 games with the Lions pick 6 right off his hands, the Bills game with the offsides. Those are just the 2 games that one receiver explicitly cost you. You can look at a majority of their 6 games, and in one way or another, it was on the lack of receiving talent on this team. That was really their only concern all year, and it was a big one, and now they are way better there. So I love this team, man. And Pat is as good as he's ever been. I mean, he's playing perfect football. I do think he's the best quarterback ever in terms of peak. There's nobody who's ever blended this sort of unbelievable talent as a thrower of the football, as a mover and play extender and runner, while being as surgical and genius as he is at this stage. I think he'll have a better regular season, a much better regular season than last year, because last year there was some fluky stuff with some picks, and again, it was just a less dynamic offensive group around him. But really what it comes down to is in the playoffs, nobody touches Pat. As much as I love Josh Allen, I expect Patrick Mahomes to outduel the opposing quarterback, to make every key play, to lead every key drive of every meaningful football game that he has ever been in. And when you combine that with this run game, this line, this receiving group, this defense, it is compelling to me, man. I think this is going to be a dominant Chiefs year. You guys, I think, are a little low with the regular season win totals. Last year, I do think, like Logan said, was kind of the floor with some of the games that they fumbled away and with their offensive limitations around Mahomes, and they still won 11 games. I think this is a 14-win team. I think that this is the number 1 seed in the AFC. I think this is the best team in football, and I'm just trying to think of a way that I cannot be boring and pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl again, because I don't really want to do that. We've never seen a three-peat, so from that perspective, historically, you would argue that it's not a likely outcome, but I just look at them compared to everybody else, and they check so many boxes while having by far the best player at the most important position, especially compared to teams with comparable rosters. If it's the Niners, the Lions I really like, but I still think that defense is more of a red flag than anything with Kansas City. This is just already one of the greatest dynasties ever, man, and we don't necessarily talk about them like that already, but there are only a few teams to win 3 championships in 5 years, which the Chiefs have now done. The Pats did it twice with Brady. The Cowboys did it in the 90s. The Steelers did it in the late 70s. I mean, those are the defining franchises of this sport's history, save the 80s and early 90s 49ers. So as long as they have Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones and Andy Reid, those are the big 4, they should arguably be the favorite every year. And this is a more complete team, significantly more complete in my eyes, than the group that just won the Super Bowl. So it is going to be hard to pick against them, in my opinion. And I'm probably not going to do it because history tells me that I shouldn't.
They are probably favored in every single game that they will play this upcoming season. For that, I understand your 14-3 record. But I do look at some of their games and also look in the division. You look at the Chargers. What is their go-to this upcoming season? Of course, we're going to talk about them a little bit, but they are in a Greg Roman offense, a.k.a. they're going to be very run-heavy. If there is a weakness on the defense, it would be that rush defense, which is why we were so surprised in the AFC Championship game of why the Ravens decided not to run the ball more. Their main strength, the best rush offense in football, decided not to use their main strengths against the biggest weakness of the Kansas City Chiefs. I look at the Chargers and understand they will be a great run offense. I look at last year, this Raiders team, although it may be extremely underwhelming, they were still able to take a game away from Kansas City last season. The Denver Broncos, maybe that probably is me being optimistic.
Yeah, come on now, Drew.
I'm looking at maybe. I'm not saying we win both. That's an obvious lie, especially for what we're 15-1 in our last 16
That's
meetings.
What I was going to say.
Something
yeah.
insane. But we could still split there. I look at opening day. I still believe that Logan spoke about it a little bit before, that addition of Derrick Henry. I'm taking the Ravens to win that game. In San Francisco, I would take San Francisco to win that game. It's the regular season, so obviously you win 12. You win 11, 12, 13, and like you're predicting 14 games. In this division, that will still be good enough to finish as first place. So, again, I don't have too much pushback there. But 14-3, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid. That's obviously a great combination to be successful on the offensive side, and you have the defensive personnel that they do have. It's not insane to believe that they can win 14 games, but when it comes to Super Bowl conversations, it kills me to say this. I'm not picking any other team to beat them until they lose. It's that simple. I will go down with the ship. It could be a first-round matchup where I may not love them, choosing the Chiefs. Second-round matchup, I'm choosing the Chiefs. It does not matter, even against the Baltimore Ravens. I believe last year was Baltimore's year to beat them and quote unquote upset them, because of course the Chiefs have to be dethroned until further notice. But the Chiefs were underdogs. The Ravens had the blueprint to beat them, and it did not matter. The Chiefs just know how to rise to an occasion. It's unfortunate as a Bronco fan to sit here and say all this, but sometimes you have to acknowledge the truth. And Kansas City is one of the best teams we've ever seen. Period.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you guys hit on a lot of it. I think 14 wins is really bold, Carson. That's just
Chiefs, man. They've done it twice in the last 4 years.
It's not impossible, and like you look at the teams that have done it in the past 20 years or so, right? You look at Peyton's Colts, you look at Brady's Patriots, you look at Rodgers' Packers. They're established, great deep teams with great quarterbacks, so it's definitely not out of the possibility, but I lean more with what Drew said. I think this division has gotten a lot tougher than last year. I think Herbert's going to be healthy. The Chargers are going to be a tough out both games. I think Bo Nix is legit. I think him and Sean Payton are going to lead out a really good offense, or they're going to be good enough to be competitive in games and challenge teams the way Russell Wilson couldn't. And I think the Raiders' defense is good enough where they're going to be competitive basically in all the division games. And then there are games that I look on at the schedule that I think are going to be difficult. So I can definitely see it happening. And then on picking them, it is bold to pick against them. I don't like going chalk preseason. That's why I always try to get a little creative with my picks. I took Jets over Eagles last year. I'm taking, I think, Detroit over Baltimore, or I might take Baltimore over Detroit.
I respect that.
I'm debating on who I'm taking. But I'm saying that last year was the worst year that we saw from the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season. And when the playoffs rolled around, I took them to win the Super Bowl over San Francisco because they still had the recipe. And if we play 18 weeks of football and the Chiefs haven't slipped up and they look like the juggernaut that, when all the pieces come together, because they weren't a juggernaut, but it was still Mahomes, a great running game, the best defense in all of football. If they show all those signs, I'm with you guys. I don't know how I'm going to be able to pick against them if they show all of their cards in this regular season. So for right now, I'm going to get a little creative with my pick, but it's tough. But the track record says their luck's got to run out at some point, right, guys? It's got to be one of these years.
I mean, the thing is, I don't know that we can call it luck, man. And last year, it's not like they were dominant, right? I mean, they eked out that win against the Bills. I was there, and a missed field goal did them
against Baltimore.
A big favor there. Baltimore, right? I mean, they controlled that game defensively, but they were never able to pull away offensively. And obviously, the Niners game was extremely close. But that's the thing. When you have the best clutch performer that we've seen, and when you have a brilliant defensive coordinator and a defense that is making so many timely stops with this current iteration, they're built to win close games like that. And when it comes to the outlook of them versus all the other contenders, the Niners, I mean, we could see that go a different way, but I also think that the Niners have a few more questions right now, and I also think that I'm going to tend to bet on the greatest quarterback that we've seen versus a more average quarterback who's more prone to making mistakes. Within the conference, Drew, I think you hit it. I think that the Ravens last year had the best crack that they could possibly have. That was the most talented team in football, and they held the Chiefs to 17 points. And game plan, Lamar not playing up to the level that they needed, Zay Flowers with that killer fumble, like all those things held them back. But I look at the Chiefs and I think that they have clearly gotten better this year, even with a slight step back defensively, because I think that offense can be so much more productive and dynamic throughout the regular season. And I look at the Ravens and I think that they've gotten a little bit worse. I love the Henry ad, but I'm more concerned about the line, which has been consistently great for them. But Morgan Moses and Kevin Zeitler, those are big losses. I'm worried about some of the defensive losses with Patrick Queen and Clowney and Geno Stone. Like, I still think the Ravens are great, but last year they had the upper hand. And now I think they've taken a slight step back, and the Chiefs have taken a step forward, and the Chiefs were already able to find a way to win last year.
Let me say this, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. You said Pacheco's the best back Mahomes ever had. I would say for, the 9-10 games that he had, Kareem Hunt, maybe that might be a little bit better of a
that's
running back.
fair. The thing is, Kareem really had his big season the year before. 2017
Correct.
was when he led the league as a rookie.
amazing.
So that's where it's like 2018 Kareem, he was all right for, half a season or whatever. I think Pacheco is playing at a really high level right now. They leaned on the run game throughout the postseason last year. We did a trivia question, and Pacheco was in the top 10 carries in a single postseason run ever, and he was damn good. And in those cold physical environments, like, he pulled them through. So I think Pacheco's good. Obviously, I think Kareem Hunt in the 2017 season is better than this Pacheco, but if you're just looking at the time they spent with Mahomes, I'd probably take Pacheco.
I respect that. Pacheco runs his ass off every single time that he's out there on the field.
He does,
but it's
man.
interesting to say, too, because they just added Samaje Perine off waivers. They did just also keep on the roster Carson Steele, who is like a fullback / running back. So maybe they don't believe in the skill set fully of an Isaiah Pacheco, or just understanding the running back position is just so – I don't want to say, I guess volatile is the word I'm looking, but replaceable is more so the word that I'm looking for. That I don't have anything against Isaiah Pacheco. Obviously, he was a Super Bowl winner, but I expected him to perform a little bit better against San Francisco than he ultimately did. But throughout the entirety of last season, especially in that second half where they used him more as a receiving back, he really showed his value.
For sure.
And you got to have good depth at running back, too. I like Carson Steele, man. That kid runs hard. Like, he plays hard, too.
Great name. Fantastic name. I love the kid already.
He's solid, man.
Yeah.
Should I get us right into the number 2?
Go for it, man.
I got a feeling he's going to try to convince us the Broncos are going to win 11 games.
I don't think so. I don't think
chance.
so.
I'm trying to be very realistic with my Broncos this year, and if I'm going to be transparent, I want us to be bad just one more year.
Yeah,
One more
no,
year
it's
of being
good.
Bad. That's it. Bring Luther Burden home. But my number 2 team in the AFC West is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I'm not overly high on the Los Angeles Chargers because of the sole fact that they just added Jim Harbaugh and all the pieces are supposed to fall into place, similarly like we saw when he took over in San Francisco, when I believe they were a 4-win team and then went all the way to 13 wins. To me, I don't think that that's realistic with this current Los Angeles Chargers roster. You saw what they wanted to do this offseason offseason. It's evident the game plan that they're going into it with this season. We're going to be a run-heavy offense, and they showed that not only by obviously adding Greg Roman as their OC, but bringing in Joe Alt with their 6th overall pick instead of drafting Malik Neighbors. We'll see how that ages. To me, I feel horrendous about that with how awesome we've seen Malik Neighbors look in preseason and, of course, and all the clips that you see in practice. But, of course, when you have the New York social media team, it's obviously going to make you feel a little bit better about the Malik Neighbors pick and a little bit worse about bringing in Joe Alt. But Joe Alt is a big body, 6'8", and an insane human being to put out at right tackle, opposite side of Rashawn Slater. And you want to protect your franchise quarterback. That makes perfect sense to me, especially when you have Justin Herbert get dinged up a little bit these last couple of seasons. Your goal is to protect the franchise, and your only chance of being a successful team is when Justin Herbert is on the field. So to me, that pick does make a little bit of sense in that regard. But also, you want to be a run-heavy team. You bring in a great rush blocking option at the right tackle position. You go and you bring in Gus Edwards. You go and you bring in J.K. Dobbins, who I believe is the best running back on the roster if he is 100% healthy.
Oh, yeah.
You look at how effective he was 2 seasons ago in that last stretch of games when he first returned from injury. He was extremely efficient. Last season, of course, getting injured in game 1 is a total bummer. Tearing your Achilles is never ideal, but if given opportunity, I believe that J.K. Dobbins will be the best running back on this team. But my concern with this team will remain the defense. In the secondary, they were one of the worst secondaries in football. They were one of the worst rush defenses in football. And I understand you have the personnel. You have Joey Bosa. You have Khalil Mack. You have Derwin James. You have Asante Samuel Jr. I just have my concern where you have that talent, but we haven't seen Joey Bosa be able to stay healthy. I know that Derwin James was healthy last season, but you do have your concerns with him when it comes to health. Also, Khalil Mack, a year older. Still a really good player, but he's getting up there in age. Are you still going to have that same dominant production? I know he had double-digit sacks last season, but 6 of them came in 1 game. Again, I'm not trying to undermine that performance. Unbelievable. 6 sacks in 1 game. It's video game great. But a lot of his production did come from that one performance. They did not do enough on the defensive side for me to just be blind faith, having all the trust in Jim Harbaugh. I don't know if it's this season. Next season, we'll have real conversations.
Yeah.
This year, to me, they're a 7-10, 8-9 team, but I do have them coming in second place. I don't want to sleep on Ladd McConkey going there and being added to the wide receiver position. I do believe that he's a talented route runner, is extremely fast, also ran a 4.39, but Josh Palmer and Ladd McConkey simply are not good enough to replace the production of Keenan Allen and Mike Will. But 7-10, 8-9 for the first season back with Jim Harbaugh to lead for a much stronger, better future. Chargers fans should not be upset if that's the outcome.
I also think that's going to be the outcome. Now, I think I'm on an island with this one. I have the Chargers 3rd in my division at 7-10, so I have another team sandwiched between them. And this isn't
the Raiders. Wow.
This isn't anything against Harbaugh or Herbert. I just don't like the state of the roster, and like you, Drew, I don't think it's just going to be like a quick fix 1 season in and Harbaugh's, this cure-all miracle worker where the Chargers are just going to be back in the playoff picture. Now, like you said, I think next year, another year of building talent, I definitely think they could be there. But I understand why people buy in. Harbaugh's got the 5th highest winning percentage of any coach in NFL history. He's a proven winner at the NFL level, at the college level. And like you mentioned, they should give Herbert more of a running game than he's ever had. Not only do they bring in Gus Bus and J.K., they bring in Will Dissly, who's one of the best blocking tight ends of all of football. And they do lose the reliable and proven weapons in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, but I think Herbert's going to elevate these receivers. Now, I want all the Ladd McConkey stock, bro. That dude is white AB. He is white AB, man. We're going to see it first year. That dude is crisp.
That's high praise, man.
That's a comparison like I've ever heard one.
The way
and
he
by the
moves.
way, let's hope that you don't mean that off the field. Let's hope that is a purely on-field comparison.
We'll cross our fingers. I understand the Neighbors point, and I think that would be an erotic combination, Herberts and Neighbors, but
it'd be insane.
I think Joe Alt was a great pick. He's one of the best offensive lineman prospects ever. Now, I do have a little bit of a flag with this. Alt is going to be playing right tackle for the first time in his career, which is a little bit of a concern to me. I think he's a stud. I think if they play him there long term, he's going to adjust, but this is his first time on that side. But to me, Slater and Alt are the tackle franchise tandem of the future for the Chargers. And I have always held this position when doing team building, which is why I thought the Giants not screwed up by getting Neighbors, but throughout this rebuild, it was always, let's go get another wideout. Let's go get another wideout. No, why don't you guys go draft an offensive lineman and protect whoever the quarterback's going to be after Daniel Jones? You take a look at what the Lions did with their rebuild. You know, they passed on Jamar, but they get Penei Sewell. Or they miss out on Chase, but they get Sewell.
Yep.
Sewell, to me, was the no-brainer pick. I would have taken him number 1 overall. Like, he was a monster. And so I love when teams invest inside and then build their team out. So I think that's a great pick. The interior O-line leaves a lot to be desired to me. I don't like their centers. I don't like their guard play. So I think the running game will be improved with Greg Roman, with these running backs. I don't think it's going to be like a great unit, but it will be the best that Herbert's ever had. I mean, he has just been – he's had an anvil tied around his ankle trying to just carry this offense. And then defensively, the pass rush is going to be solid if they're healthy with Bosa and Mack, but I'm worried basically about everybody else outside of them. The front, Morgan Fox and Poona Ford, they're veterans, but they're nothing special. You know, Derwin James, I think, is still great. Asante Samuel is good, but then I look at the rest of the secondary. Christian Fulton, Cam Hart, Jasir Taylor, whoever they're trotting out there is unproven, and then the linebackers are mostly unproven. Perriman's a solid run stopper, doesn't do anything else, getting up there in age. And I liked Henley. I liked when he came out of the draft last year out of Washington State. He's unproven. So is Junior Colson out of Michigan. They're basically both rookies. So, like I said at the top, this isn't really a Herbert or a Harbaugh thing. I just think it's going to take a little more time. I think year 2 or year 3 of the experiment is when we see the Chargers truly break into playoff, into contender status. But they're going to be competitive this year. I think they're going to be more competitive than they've been in the Herbert era. And I think they're going to be in every game. But I don't think this is a playoff team, and I think they're third in this division.
I don't think that we're too far apart on the Chargers. I'm higher on them than you guys. I do have them winning 9 games, but I don't think they're a playoff team yet. I believe deeply in Jim Harbaugh and this staff, though. I love Harbaugh as a leader. I love him as a football mind. The guy wins everywhere. I think he is built to transform programs and organizations. But that doesn't always happen in one year. I do like the coordinator hires as well, though. I think that Roman has been one of the best OCs at building out excellent run games in recent years, bringing balance to an offense that has desperately needed it, that has not ever been able to run the football under Justin Herbert. And defensively, it sounds like Jesse Minter is going to bring some of the disguise that was really signature of the Staley defense, right? Still keep quarterbacks and offenses on their toes, but simplify things, be more flexible with the players, with the scheme, because there was a lot of talk towards the end of the Staley era of players being like, we don't even understand our own defense. Like, you need to simplify this, and Staley just was resistant to that. And Minter also, it sounds like, is going to emphasize physicality more, which I think was another shortcoming in the Chargers era under Staley, just bringing these light-ass boxes, getting destroyed on the ground. So I think that that's a successful combination. I think that's a really promising coaching staff that is coming in. But like you guys, I'm just not sure this roster is that good. I really, really like J.K. Dobbins. Drew, I'm with you. I mean, if he's on the field and if he looks like the guy who we saw last time he was healthy for an extended stretch, like, that's a really, really good running back. However, I don't have any reason to expect that J.K. Dobbins is going to be healthy. And unfortunately, even if he's able to get on the field, it's like after an ACL tear, after an Achilles tear, this is running back that we're talking about, man. This is already the most short-lived, one of the most injury-prone positions. Multiple traumatic injuries like that, it just makes me really, really concerned. So I don't think the track record is good there. But Gus has always been productive. You're improving in pure rushing, obviously, because Eckler was never good at that. I do think you lose out on that pass-catching element out of the backfield, and they may miss that a bit. In the receiver room, I think it's basically a lateral move. Mike Williams wasn't that healthy last year, obviously. He missed most of the year. Keenan Allen has been very productive. I do think that he's quite good, but he's lost a good bit athletically. I mean, he's really just a very sound route runner, has very good feel at this point in terms of getting open. I think the collective room of Palmer and Chark and McConkey is fine. I just didn't think the room was that good last year. Like, I think that it's a pretty similar overall level, even though it looks different. Maybe it's a slight improvement, because I do think that the Chargers receivers were outproducing their actual ability because Herbert is that good. And I think you give him average dudes, he will make them look above average. And I like McConkey long-term as an investment at the position. I do think that they kind of nailed the first round addressing both the glaring need at receiver with a guy who I'm confident in and addressing that second tackle spot, having their foundation there on the offensive line. Logan, just specifically on the Giants point, I don't want to rag on them for not drafting in the trenches because they took Andrew Thomas. He's actually good. They took Evan Neal. He sucks. Like, they tried. They're just the Giants. They're not gonna do things that well, generally speaking. But I like the Chargers' approach. And I feel pretty good about the O-line with Slater and Alt. I think it's going to be a good offense. I think that Justin Herbert, over the years, we've seen produce damn good offenses without great personnel alongside him, but I don't think it's going to be an elite offense. I do think the wide receiving core overall is still below average, and I think the running game is going to improve, but I don't necessarily think that it is suddenly going to become like a huge strength of this offense. I think, again, a lot of this philosophical stuff with the coaching staff, with the roster decisions, these are moves that are going to pay off more a year from now than they are today. And defensively, I think that they should be better. Last year, they were not good. They were 23rd in points allowed per drive. But personnel-wise, I don't really see improvement. It's like maybe Joey Bosa could be healthy, but probably not. Definitely not for a full season. Both their starting DTs were not starting caliber players last year. Poona Ford was a Bill, and he was barely in the Bills' D-line rotation. Linebackers outside of Khalil Mack, not great. I do think the secondary could be good. I think there are some high-impact guys there, but this is a defense with holes. I mean, that's been the theme for this defense, right? They have their great individual names, their stars, but they have holes around them, and I just don't think that has changed this year. So all that being said, yes, I'm underwhelmed with the roster. I still expect real improvement because I believe in Herbert that much, and I believe in the coaching staff. I just think they need another year to be an actual playoff team. But I also don't want to undersell like what Herbert has managed to do for this team with an organization that has really mismanaged things around him the whole time that he's been there. I mean, this is a team that we've seen win 10-9 games. They've been basically 500 with Herbert. Last year, the bottom fell out because Herbert got hurt, and all of a sudden, you're letting up 70 to the fucking Raiders, and you can't win a game, of course, because Herbert's covered all this up. But I think he's going to get back to his job. He's going to cover things up. He's going to play like a top 5 quarterback, and I like the direction things are headed for the Chargers.
Couple things, and then I'll move on to the third team that I have. The Giants point, thank you for bringing that up, Carson, because it's the truth. They've tried.
Yeah.
Andrew Thomas is one of the best tackles in football when he's on the field.
Right.
Evan Neal is horrendous. Yeah. Malik Neighbors is the first great wide receiver that the Giants have given Daniel Jones in his tenure as Giants quarterback. The Giants have failed to build a cohesive, sound offense around Daniel Jones, but everyone just points and looks at
Daniel Jones sucks, though, right? Daniel Jones sucks, though, right?
That's perfect to me. Daniel Jones sucks, right? In your words, Daniel Jones sucks, but his wide receiver one for
Daniel
the
Jones
majority
is one
of
of
his
the
tenure,
worst. Daniel Jones is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen start in the NFL for
Kenny Pickett
a
existed.
prolonged stretch.
I'm just saying, Kenny Pickett existed. However,
shit is shit. Shit is shit.
Daniel Jones
shit
is
is
number
shit,
one
man.
wide receiver. Oh, if you gave Daniel Jones, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, it's a movie. But no, their wide receiver one is Darius Slayton. Sterling Shepard was probably the best wide receiver that Daniel Jones has had, and Sterling Shepard couldn't stay on the field to save his life. And now Wan'Dale Robinson, who has had some hype behind him, now is primed for a breakout season because he's actually in the role that he's supposed to thrive in, and that's a wide receiver 2 role because they finally got him an X. They spent $17 million a year to bring in Kenny Golladay. They've done nothing. Zero to benefit Daniel Jones. But again, everyone just points and laughs at Daniel Jones because he's awful. But how many quarterbacks in NFL history have rushed for over 800 yards in the regular season and postseason combined? 15 touchdowns passing, 7 touchdowns rushing, with one of the worst offensive personnels that any of us will watch and go and win a playoff game also on top of that and beat a 13-win team. I'll just say that. I know we're not talking about the Giants, But
no, we got to let Logan get in on Daniel Jones because this might be the most staunch Daniel Jones defense.
Yeah,
I've
no, I was
heard,
going to say.
And Logan is maybe the biggest Danny Dimes hater who I know. So
did
I'm
I
just going
say
to sit back here with my
anything that was
popcorn for a
overly
second.
wrong? The truth is the truth. They've done nothing to help him, but the easy thing is to blame the quarterback.
Before I do let Logan go in, here's what I will say. Two things can be true at once. The Giants can have done a bad job building around him, which they objectively have. They have had bad skill position talent. They have not been good in the trenches. And Daniel Jones can be bad. And I think that both things are true. I would not call him one of the worst starting quarterbacks I've seen because I do think the 2022 season, right, he played at a pretty average level. However, outside of that, and particularly what we saw last year when he was healthy, that was a disaster, and I do think that he is chaotic in terms of his pocket presence. I think his decision-making can be really, really bad. The turnovers can be really, really bad. Like, he's not a guy who I would ever want starting for my football team, but the Giants haven't done him any favors. That is true.
I've never met a Daniel Jones defender in my life, dude. This is a first for me, Drew. And I respect your football opinion, so maybe you see something that I don't. I will go to bat for Kenny for one time. Kenny doesn't turn the ball over. Kenny never turns
Kenny
the
also
rock
doesn't
over.
throw the ball more than 7 yards downfield.
Because he sucks too. You know, both of these guys suck. Like, again, man, the one stat that I always go back to with Danny Dimes, everybody else on this list that is above him has 5 to 10 more games played. 40 picks and 46 fumbles throughout his career. He has the 8th most turnovers since entering the league. Again, that's with basically 10 to 20 less games played. The only guy above him on this list with similar amount of games played is old ass Matt Ryan. I don't know, dude. Daniel Jones blows. I'm like, do you think he's like a starter? Drew, do you think he's like a starting caliber quarterback? Do you think what's the best offensive situation in football? What's the
Probably
best?
then let's say
spoiled?
last year's Niners or the
Or the
Eagles.
Dolphins.
The Eagles
Put him-
is pretty great.
Eagles is great. Dolphins is great.
If you put him in Miami, if you put him in San Francisco, how many games do those teams win? I think they go from contenders to like 8-win, 9-win teams.
Oh,
They still win
no.
double-digit games.
Yeah, no, the Niners would still be damn
You're
good with
telling
Daniel
me
Jones back
Daniel
there.
Jones starts his career with Kyle Shanahan, gets Brandon Ayuk, Debo
Actually, that's probably an
Samuel,
unfair.
George Kittle,
Shanahan
CMC.
made Beathard and Mullins decent, you know?
Nate Mullins, bro,
He
like
made-
statistically is one of the best quarterbacks ever when he plays.
yeah.
I
Because he
don't
played for
disagree
Kyle
with
Shanahan.
a lot of what you guys are saying. It's hard to defend Daniel, no doubt. But you mentioned the interceptions, you mentioned the fumbles. In 2022, only got picked off 5 times. Really did a great job of keeping safe when he came to fumbles. Last season, did not play good. Will not defend him in that right. But ironically enough, who did not play in that time span in the short amount of time that Daniel Jones was playing quarterback for the Giants? No Andrew Thomas, arguably the best left tackle in football. You know the difference when Andrew Thomas is out there and is not, because the offensive line's already terrible with Andrew Thomas on the field. But with Andrew Thomas, it's like putting a Band-Aid over the biggest gash you could ever have in your life. And no Saquon Barkley as well. He was in just the crystal clear, perfect situation to be horrendous, and it obviously did not help that Darren Waller was a bum pickup by the New York Giants. They did nothing to go out there and give him a true wide receiver until this season. I get it. He hasn't done a great job of defending himself, but in 2022, when Andrew Thomas was healthy, when Saquon Barkley was healthy, he was able to do enough to win enough games to go to the playoffs. I don't think he's as bad as everybody makes him out to be. He's a very good dual-threat quarterback. He actually has a great ability to throw the ball deep downfield. He never had the weapons to do so.
I object. Very good and Daniel Jones do not go together in the same sentence at anything. Very good dual threat. Very good downfield. I think the crux of my issue with Daniel Jones at the end of the day is he has no swag. He has no, like, cool factor
His nickname's
to him.
Danny Dimes.
But he's like a...
And the other one is Vanilla Vic.
Vanilla
which is
Vic. Throw some
hard.
respect on a boy. And you see the beard? His aura... Yo, come on.
No, but to be fair, why does he look like such a freak in every picture, bro? Why are his eyes, like, popping out of his head? Yeah. He's
with
got
the
the Bobby
beard-
Portis eyes.
But with the beard, hey.
Dude,
I see the
when
vision.
you fumble 29 times
know.
in your first 2 years and keep getting shellacked by D linemen, we'd probably look like that too, man.
No, he's seen some things
fact.
for sure. Unspeakable things. We had the appetizer last week. Now it's time to feast. College football is back. Don't miss any of the action. Jump in at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's a full slate of games for week 1, including the big matchup in Atlanta between the preseason number 1 and number 16.
This is going to be DraftKings' biggest college football season to date. Enjoy the ride now all the way through the expanded playoffs. Plus, all newbies getting into the college spirit. Here's something extra special. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly.
Score big with DraftKings all college football season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Who do you have third in this division, Drew?
And coming in third place, I do have the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this one was interesting with me because this is where Logan and I contemplated. Carson and I contemplated putting my Denver Broncos there, but I decided to have a little bit of sense because of the idea that this was an 8-9 team last year. And obviously the difference between Josh McDaniels and Antonio Pierce when the throne was given over to Antonio, there was definitely a shift in locker room, a shift in vibes, and you saw it on the play on the field. But I look at this team, and I'm still left underwhelmed. For number one, the quarterback is either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. That's an L. You probably have a bottom 2 quarterback situation in the National Football League. And I get Gardner Minshew was good enough to be a game away from going to the playoffs with the Indianapolis Colts, but it's completely different going from Shane Steichen offense to a Luke Getsy offense. That's just a drastic difference for me. I love the skill players on this team. Devontae Adams is not washed. He's still great as a wide receiver. He is a top 5 to 7 wide receiver still in this league. Jacoby Myers is one of the better wide receiver twos. You bring in Brock Bowers. Michael Mayer obviously moves down the depth chart a little bit, but Michael Mayer's not a bad tight end option. And Zamir White is a fine running back to have. Last year, you look at when Josh Jacobs went down and he took over. He was extremely efficient, and that's when the run game really started to take off. The offensive line's pretty sound as well. Cole Miller is one of the better offensive linemen in the game. The defense was one of the main reasons why this team was respectable last season. I believe they were 9th in EPA per play. They were top 10 in success rate when it came to dropbacks as well. They were pretty good. They were all right when it came to stopping the run. Their success rate was pretty low. That's why they went out there and they brought in Christian Wilkins. Some look at it as an overpay, but when you have Mad Max, one of the best defensive ends in football, now you solidified a defensive tackle position, which has ultimately become one of the more important positions on a defense because of their ability to impact not just stopping the run, but also getting to the quarterback. Christian Wilkins does a pretty good job of doing both. I look at the Raiders team and understand they're going to be a defensive-minded team, but as far as it comes to the offensive side, I just can't find myself buying into Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. With that being said, I have them finishing as a 6-11 team, finishing in third place. I just can't trust an offense that doesn't have a quarterback. And I understand that could be next season, and I know that there were 6 teams that screwed them in the draft, but they're going to look and kind of a little bit of backwards thinking with me and Logan, where Logan's kind of talking long-term vision. You bring in Brock Bowers at pick 13, that will benefit the roster for years to come. So it's not the worst thing that they miss out on Bo Nix, but for this upcoming season, especially with Devontae Adams getting up there in age, him already having mixed feelings about the current state of the Las Vegas Raiders, it's going to be an unfortunate season for them. 6-11, I concede 7-10 because of the defense being as good as it is, but the offense is simply too bad, or is going, in my estimation, how I see it, is going to be too bad to overcome.
I understand that. I do think Bo Nix would be the best QB on this roster if the Raiders were fortunate enough to draft him. I have the Raiders going 8-9. I have them finishing at second in this division, and last season I was early to let you guys know about a quirked up white boy with a little bit of swag, and I'll let you in on the party to another one. Gardner Minshew is going to be that guy last year. I put you on with Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm going to be clear about something. Gardner Minshew is not without his flaws. He is a below-average quarterback. He sometimes struggles with pocket awareness. He is prone to turnovers, especially fumbles. But I think he can manage games. He's experienced. He played a lot of college ball at Washington State in that air raid offense. He has a lot of NFL experience now. And he does have a little bit of playmaking upside that other backup quarterbacks don't. Most importantly, he's got swag, he's got dog, and I trust him as a locker room leader, which are very important things at the QB position. So, obviously, he's not a top-end quarterback. He's not going to elevate this offense in any means, but I think he can manage the offense. Solid O-line. You mentioned Colton Miller. I think Andre James is also a stud, and I am so jealous that the Raiders got Jackson Powers-Johnson in the second round.
Late.
Steal of the draft. I wanted the Steelers to either get him at the top of the second. I was hoping maybe we take him in the first round. I'm happy with our selections, but that guy's a stud. He should be starting by the end of the year. Like you, I like the weapons, and I love this defense. Max Crosby, 14.5 sacks last season. Christian Wilkins, a great run stopper, but also produced 9 sacks last season. Malcolm Kuntz broke out 8 sacks last year. And I really like Jack Jones. We got a brief glimpse of what he could do last year with the Raiders. I didn't watch ASU football games because I was on the radio. I was, doing broadcasts in and out of breaks. Every ASU football game I covered with Jack Jones, his name was all over the radio, the broadcast. He's making a play. The kid's a bona fide playmaker. I think he's going to be one of the best corners in the league. I like the linebacking core with Robert Spillane. And I like some of the secondary pieces. Nate Hobbs, Morig, I think they've got some chops to them. So, like you said, this is a defensive-minded team. This is a team that's going to have to win on the back of their defense, but I think that's a good recipe. It's not a good enough recipe to make this a playoff team. It's not a good enough recipe, I think, to make them a double-digit win team, but I think they're good enough to be competitive in every game. And you look at the difference. Under McDaniels, one of the worst head coaches I've ever seen. I cannot believe that McDaniels got a second job after the disaster that the Denver Broncos turned out to be. Wow, that's one of the worst hires ever. Last year, 3-5, the offense averaged 16 points per game under McDaniels and allowed 24 points per game. Under Antonio Pierce, 23 points per game on offense and 16 points per game allowed. So it was a 7-point swing on both sides of the ball. Obviously, those numbers are a little bit skewed by that 70 burger the Raiders put up, but they were 5-4. I thought we saw a really big culture shift under Antonio Pierce, and that's what I'm buying into with this team. A culture shift, a defense shift, and just a harder, more prepared, grittier team that buys into the leaders of this team. So I don't think they're going to be explosive. I don't think we're looking at one of the best teams in the AFC, but I think this is going to be a competitive team that keeps their heads above water. And I like Gardner Minshew, man. I know a lot of people aren't going to tell you to buy Minshew stock, but I think he's good enough to steer the ship, to get this team to some victories and to make some plays when this team needs.
Yeah, I kind of like the Raiders this year. I do think that they're going to be scrappy. And the Antonio Pierce thing is really interesting to me because initially it was just kind of a crazy promotion. And having covered ASU football, Logan, you did some radio stuff, but I was a full-on beat reporter. I was at every ASU football practice. I was intensely covering the team. Antonio Pierce had a really, really ugly end to his tenure there that I don't think a lot of people are nationally aware of. He was basically the architect of a major recruiting scandal that has put the entire program in the gutter. We're talking about prohibited contact with players during COVID, bringing them on campus, documenting all of that. And then he basically took no accountability for it, just left the program that has now been sanctioned and managed to kind of fail upwards and find his way to a head coaching job. So I think that right now he is very much like the darling of the Raiders organization. Everybody loves him. He has the sort of ethos and mentality that they love as a program. He's hard-headed. He's a former linebacker who won at the NFL level as a player. I'm just a little bit more tentative maybe to fully embrace the Antonio Pierce era because of what I saw with how everything went down at ASU. It's a different level. It's a different role. But I do think when you're a leader and you don't take accountability, and I get it, at that point you're like literally trying to save your ass because you know the ship's going down, but you're the one who sunk the ship, my guy. So I don't think that that's a very good reflection of some of the leadership qualities that he has that everybody is raving about right now when he's kind of in the honeymoon phase with the team. That being said, there's no question he helped turn around their season last year. They played hard for him, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I do like the defense quite a bit. It was a well above average unit last year. I love the defensive front. I think it's an elite unit. I love the Wilkins ad. Logan, as you mentioned, I think Kuntz had an underrated season last year. I think the linebackers outside of Spillane are a bit of a question mark, but I do think that the secondary is really good. I also think Jack Jones, when he's on the field, he's another guy who has had some character issues over the years, but he is an incredibly talented football player. And I don't think this offense is awful. I think that the quarterback play will be better than last year by default, because I think that Gardner Minshew is a good bit better than Aiden O'Connell. I think that Gardner Minshew is honestly fine as a stopgap starter. So long term, yeah, I think the Raiders have a really, really bleak quarterback outlook because they are in like the phase of, oh, we just have a spot starter, but we don't have anybody waiting in the wings, right? It's not like we have Sam Darnold starting, but we have J.J. McCarthy we've invested in. They don't have a guy for the future. But for right now, I think Gardner is okay, and I think the situation around him, average offensive line, Zamir White, I like. We'll see if he can carry this full load, but he's fine. The receiving core, I'd say, is above average overall with the Bowers addition. Jacoby Myers had a really good year last year. So they're still definitely limited by their quarterback play. Like, I don't think that Gardner Minshew is close to an average starter. He's still, in that bottom tier of starters. I just don't think he's a disaster. It's not like you're starting week one and Zach Wilson is your quarterback like the Jets.
Yeah, you're like Russell Wilson's your starter, man.
Well, it's closer to that.
That is a you problem now.
That is a you problem, my friend. That is a you problem. But the thing is, he doesn't have an elite line, an elite run game to lean on. Like, everything around him is solid, but it's not going to carry him and this offense. And I also don't like the Luke Getsy hire. So I think this is a 7-win team. I think that they maybe have the upside to be a little bit better than that, because I do think this defense can be really good and this offense isn't a disaster, but it's not a good offense. I don't think this team is far away from a playoff push, though. It's just all going to be about the quarterback position. If they can maintain this defense before Devontae has aged out of his real prime, keep some of those good offensive pieces in place, this would be a good team. There's not quite there yet.
Now, the truth, where I respect where you guys are coming from on Garner. However, he is a bottom 2 quarterback in the league. Starting
a starter?
Starting.
Let's go through.
Who's the other one? Is the other one Darnold?
The other one is probably Darnold.
Wait, Daniel Jones is the worst starter in the league. What are we doing?
If you're telling me straight face Gardner Minshew,
I'm taking Gardner Minshew over Daniel Jones Monday through Sunday,
Logan,
every day of the week. That's not a
Daniel
comp,
Jones
bro.
do to you?
Daniel Jones sucks, man, and it pains me that people can't see it,
Logan,
bro.
it kills me that your hatred for Daniel Jones is blinding you to the fact that he was put in I don't want to say as bad, because Zach Wilson put in a pretty bad situation himself, even though he did eventually get Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, because that kind of exited out. Name a quarterback that has been put in a worse situation for the last 4 years. No one. There is no one.
Probably true.
You can't think of one. It's that easy.
I mean, Zach Wilson is close.
Okay, but
Zach Wilson's close, but he got Garrett Wilson and he got Breece Hall.
Okay, but it's like, here's my thing,
Jones
right?
Is pretty bad for the last couple of years.
If Daniel,
Matt,
that's a horrible situation. If Daniel Jones was a good to above average quarterback, he would have made that offense competent. He would have covered up some of the
2022,
holes.
They were competent. They were.
Yeah, but Drew, every year outside of that, they've been like a bottom 2 score. Literally, 2020, 31st scoring offense. 2021, 31st scoring offense. Last year, obviously, he gets hurt, but they were 30th, and they were playing their worst football when he was healthy.
Saquon torn ACL. Saquon messed up ankle 2 years of the 5 that he was there in New York. No wide receiver one. The one that they brought in is $17 million annually for 0 touchdown catches to Daniel Jones. Please, just have some fairness to him to understand. Yes, you may not like him as a player. It is different to also understand there is nothing, 0, that they have done to benefit him outside of Andrew Thomas, and even still, he has his injury concerns.
Can I say something, though, real quick? Gardner Minshew, yes, last year was in a pretty good situation because of Steichen.
I mean, in
the line was good. That's where I'm getting. The receiving core the Colts had last year was definitely below average. Gardner did his job. Michael
He
Pittman
would
is
be
a fine wide receiver.
He
one.
would be
Okay,
the best
but
wide
Drew,
receiver Daniels
He would.
ever had.
He would. But there's a gap between how Gardner Minshew was playing and how Daniel Jones was playing last year that is greater than the difference probably between Michael Pittman and that receiving core. Here's what I'm really getting at, though. Think about Gardner Minshew's rookie year, his first year as a starter with the Jags. That team didn't have anything going,
Yeah,
bro.
they won one game. They
No,
won one game.
no. They were 500 when he started. And he was 21 touchdowns to 6 picks.
That was the year that they
Look at his fumbles. I will say, look at how
did the
many
Jaguars
times
not win
Minshew
one
fumbled that
game with
rookie
Gardner
year.
Minshew.
No, that was the year after.
Okay, all right, because I was gonna say that was perfectly right into Trevor Lawrence.
All I'm saying is that was a receiving core where DJ Chark was his number one, and he produced efficiently as a passer,
balled
and they
out.
were a decent football team.
2022 Daniel Jones versus last year's Gardner Minshew. If you're telling me straight face you'd rather have Gardner Minshew, then hey, this conversation's over.
But it's tough because Daniel Jones, we just
know what
saw
Gardner-
play, and he was way worse than he was in
But
2022.
You know what
spoke
Gardner
about
Minshew
it.
has?
They had no Andrew
Yeah.
Thomas and no Saquon with already the worst offensive line in the league. With Andrew Thomas, I'll put the Seahawks in there last year. They were pretty terrible. And the Jaguars, they were also pretty bad. But without Andrew Thomas, now we're really talking about the worst offensive line in the league. And no Saquon. And Darren Waller sucks.
And Tommy DeVito outperformed
Tyrod
him. Is Tommy
Taylor was
DeVito better than
Andrew
Daniel
Thomas
Jones?
was at
Like,
least on the field, and so was Saquon.
Okay, I will just say, this is the most funny, in-depth debate. We're literally doing, like, you remember the Austin Hooper versus, who was it? Hayden Hurst? No, Hayden Hurst is too good. Those two random-ass tight ends, Austin
I know what you're
Safari and
talking
Jenkins
about.
or some shit. Oh, no, it was Mo Alley Cox. That's what we're doing right now with Daniel Jones and Gardner Minshew. What we can say is they're in the same tier. I think they're in the same tier with Darnold. Honestly, I would probably rather have Gardner Minshew than Will Levis this year. I'm more concerned about Will Levis than most people are. I think that there's going to be some bumps there. Also, like Bryce Young, I'm still very worried about. Deshaun Watson has just been awful for 2 years. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not saying you can't argue that Minshew is a bottom 2 day one starter. I'm also not saying that there's a gap between him and all these other dudes in the 25 to 32 range.
Let me
He's
ask
in
you
that
guys a
tier.
question. Let me ask you guys a question. Simple.
Sure.
If you put Gardner Minshew on that 2022 Giants team, do they win a playoff game, yes or no?
Well, Danny Dimes played really, really well in that one playoff
All right.
game.
His one of two playoff games, he was
Best game of his life.
Godly.
Best game of his life. But Logan's going to say something about Gardner Minshew being a quirked up white boy who would have stepped up to the moment, put his nuts on the table.
Gardner Minshew does not
thrown
have
for
half
400
the
yards.
cool nickname that Daniel Jones has. Danny Dimes and Vanilla.
He's got way more swag
Knick-knack,
than
paddywhack,
him.
give a dog a bone. Get out of here with that bullshit.
A broken clock can be right twice
Get outta
a day,
here with that
bruh.
bullshit.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Even a blind dog finds a bone. Daniel Jones can have a
use that
good
sentence
game.
now.
Playoffs
One-
against a 13-win
got-
team on the road.
I got two more things to say, man. One good game does not a quarterback make, and Gardner Minshew has the indomitable human spirit, man. You cannot beat that man down.
Talk about the American
And
dream,
Daniel
Logan.
Jones,
Tie this all into the American dream.
Daniel Jones has been beaten down. He is downtrodden. That man's soul and confidence have been crushed, and you could never do that to Gardner Minshew because he's got too much sauce. I'm done.
All right.
Whatever.
This is hilarious, but yes, Gardner Minshew is definitely one of the worst day one starters in the league. However, we have seen worse day one starters in recent years. I will say that. So from that perspective, I think he can just hold on to keeping this offense capable. That's all that I'm expecting. That's all that they need to be a decent 7-8 win team because his defense is good, man. All right, let's talk about your Broncos, Drew. Let's get to your baby boys. What are your expectations for them this year?
I'm going to be transparent. My expectations, not high, not at all. However, this is what I'm hopeful for. I'll speak as a Bronco fan, and then I'm going to get into my analysis. What I am hopeful for is that Baron Browning asserts himself as one of the better defensive ends in the league. I've kind of been waiting for that because I've known the potential that he's had, but obviously he's struggled with injury. He has an amazing skill set of getting to the quarterback, also outside linebacker. He is really, really great as a football player. It's just a matter of staying on the field. I'm looking also for rookie Jonah Ellis to kind of assert himself as well. Saw him in the preseason, was very great at getting to the quarterback, getting pressure on the quarterback, forcing quarterbacks to make bad plays. I'm talking about the game versus the Colts where he essentially forced that interception throw. Jonah Ellis was awesome pickup for us, especially in round 3. But John Franklin Myers, also the addition of him. I think our defense is actually going to be pretty awesome. Pat Surtain, I would love to see an all-pro out of him. We have the capabilities and the skill sets on defense, maybe outside a linebacker, although Alex Singleton maybe takes a step. Not hopeful about it, especially after last year wasn't too great. But I look at this defense, I'm very optimistic about it. But as a fan, what I want to see more than anything else is Bo Nix to go 18-8. Let's say he has an 18-8 season, but it's a clean 18-8, eight interceptions for a rookie. You make your normal mistakes, but you're playing clean in the pocket. He looks confident. His ability to get out of the pocket and also make plays. We've seen some of that this preseason. That's really excited me. He makes easy look easy. He takes the easy and also runs with that as well. That's something that we haven't seen in a little bit, especially with Russell Wilson. He refused to take the easy stuff, refused to sit in the pocket and deliver the ball over the middle of the field. Bo Nix will do that on a consistent basis. He'll check down to Javonte Williams. He'll check down to Jaleel McLaughlin. He will do what Sean Payton will ask of him, and I believe that he will do it at a pretty high level for a rookie quarterback. I want to see Bo Nix show me flashes that I can trust him to be my franchise quarterback. I'm already high. I'm excited, especially after this preseason and how good and how comfortable that he has looked in our offense. I get it against the Packers, that it was against the team that was playing their backups. But regardless, they are in the NFL. They have a chance of making a roster. You got to go out there and execute. And he did. And I don't want to get too excited over preseason. I saw Kenny Pickett last year. No slight at you, Logan. I'm just thinking of a guy who looked really good in preseason. Also, Zach Wilson, his rookie season. He was a preseason king and then went out there his rookie season and stunk it up. That's kind of what I'm trying to still, ease in before I go all in. But from what I've seen from him, it's exactly what I thought I was getting from my quarterback. Plus, a little bit more athleticism than I was anticipating. So I'm getting a little bit mobile out there, too. That was pretty awesome to see. What I want to see, though, is confidence in the pocket, because that's what Sean Payton has preached he wants in his franchise quarterback. That's what I want to see from Bo Nix. But now getting back to analysis. We don't have great wide receiver options. Courtland Sutton is exciting, can make an exciting play pretty often, especially after what we saw last season, but I don't know how I feel about Marvin Mims as my wide receiver 2, or Josh Reynolds as my wide receiver 2. Troy Franklin in the 4th round was a very good pick, especially for the Oregon connection that him and Bo Nix had, but again, not sure how I feel about my wide receivers. At tight end, Greg Dulcich, he's a good player, but can he stay on the field? Our offensive line, I think that it's awesome. I think that all things considered, although we did lose Lloyd Cushenberry, I think that Quinn Miners, Garrett Bowles, those are two of the better offensive linemen, especially Quinn Miners and what he's able to do in the run game. He obviously makes an impact on our side of the ball. And then Ben Powers, maybe not that level of great that he was with Baltimore, but still a pretty good left guard for us. I'm interested to see how our center looks this season. That would be a concern of mine, especially for how awesome and how much of a steal Cushenberry was, especially as a 3rd-round pick. But I'm all in on Javonte Williams. You're a full year removed after a gruesome knee injury. Now you got your year where you were underwhelming. You were definitely disappointing for what we had our hopes for, but it wasn't his fault. You're coming back from injury. That naturally happens. He looks explosive again. He looks like the running back that I saw a couple of years back, especially that rookie season where he was splitting carries with Melvin Gordon. And when he had that one game where he finally had the backfield to himself against the Chiefs, he exploded and was amazing on the ground and awesome as a receiving back. I think we'll see that with Bo Nix. He will dump off to Javonte and utilize that skill set for him. But I'll be damned if I don't mention Jaleel McLaughlin being one of the more efficient running backs in the league also last season, especially in his limited opportunity. And he's pretty great as a receiving back also. I think the defense will be great. I think our offense will have its ups and downs. I just want to see something that gives me optimism for next year to come or the years after that, so that we can go all in on building a strong offense around Bo Nix. Don't want to pull the trigger on maybe trading for a Brandon Ayuk. I would love that as a fan, but I don't want to go all in, trade for Brandon Ayuk, spend 30 to 35 million on an X wide receiver for Bo Nix to not be great, and then now we're stuck in a spot where we were back in the day, where now we're looking for another quarterback. I believe in Bo Nix. I think that we've kind of come to a stop there. I think that he can be our future quarterback, but let's give him the year to see how he looks before making any drastic changes to the team or drastic improvements to the team. I have us going 5-12, but an optimistic 5-12 where I can see something that makes me excited for next year to come.
I also have the Broncos going 5-12, and I'm really high on Bo Nix too. I think 18-8 may be underselling him a little bit. I think Bo Nix and Sean Payton are going to form a really beautiful union. One of my favorite things about Bo is how experienced he is, right? 41 college games played in his final year at Oregon, 46 TDs to 3 picks. In his college career, 113 TDs to 26 picks. That's with 38 rushing touchdowns as well, man. He's got a lot more polish than your traditional rookie quarterback, and I also think it speaks volumes. The guy like Sean Payton already trusts him so much. I like how he goes through his progressions. I like how he throws with accuracy, on the run, play action. He's got good feel, the way he moves within the pocket. And as you mentioned, you have a little bit of scrambling upside where we've seen the Broncos use designed runs for him, RPOs, read option stuff. And this is a rebuilding season, right? The reason I have them winning 5 games doesn't have a lot to do with Nix or Sean Payton. I'm really confident in them. I just don't like the roster a ton around Nix. I think you have decent weapons, not anything special. I think the offensive line's a little shaky. I like Bowles, McGlinchey, Miners. The rest of the interior offensive line scares me a little bit. I love Javonte Williams as well, man, when he can stay healthy. That kid breaks tackles a ton. I'm really worried about this defense, though, Drew, and that's where I think this team really needs to retool. They had the worst rushing defense last year. They were the 4th worst team in pressure rate. They were the 6th worst defense in terms of scoring. They were tied 6th worst in passing defense, and as we all know, they did allow 70 points in a single game. A big reason why I'm expecting a regression from last year is the turnover margin. The Broncos forced the 12th most turnovers. 26 total. They were +4 there. That's normally a big swing factor when I'm making record projections. I just think it's hard for a defense to replicate that kind of success, especially when you lose big-time playmakers. You lose Justin Simmons, you lose Kareem Jackson, and you lose the linebacker Jewell. Those guys are all impactful starters, so I like Pat Surtain. I like this pass rush, but the rest of the defense worries me a bit. Rush? So I like the pass rush a little bit. I think it's a little underrated, yeah. The rest of the defense scares me, and so, yeah, if I see a solid, efficient year from Bo Nix where he's making good decisions and showing flashes, which I think he will, honestly, Drew, you let me know if this is too hot. I mean, I think far and away, Bo Nix is your guys' best quarterback since Peyton Manning. Like
Teddy Bridgewater wasn't bad. Teddy Bridgewater wasn't bad.
Shout out to the 2 gloves.
Pretty close.
Yeah, the competition really isn't that strong. I think Bo Nix is going to be your guys' best QB since Peyton. And damn, man, that's been the one spot you guys have been searching for a long time. I do think you found your franchise guy. And when I say franchise, I think people always go, oh, he's going to be top 10. He's going to be – the quarterback position's loaded nowadays.
Yeah.
I think when I say franchise guy, I think Bo Nix is a consistent above-average starter for a prolonged time. I really believe in him. He's really experienced. I trust his decision-making. I underrated him in the pre-draft process. I really do like Bo Nix. I think he's
Carson,
pro-ready.
Can I say a few things before you go, King?
For sure.
I'll say this. Talking about the defense, if you look at from before when we had Randy Gregory, and I'm blanking on the guy who used to be on the Chiefs but then came over to us, and we cut him also. I'm just blanking on his name. Thank you.
Frank Clark.
We traded essentially Randy Gregory to the Niners for nothing, and we just cut Frank Clark. After that, our defense really started to step it up, and something about getting a bad vibe out of a locker room really saw our defense take it to that next level. After after that happened, I get it, the 70-point game to Miami, we were the worst defense in the league for the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. Not, in the run, in the pass, we simply were horrendous on all levels. After we got rid of those two guys, Brandon Browning came back onto the squad, we definitely took a step forward. And you mentioned the turnover margin. That was a big reason why our defense was so great and so effective. I just think that coming into this season, you get a fully healthy Baron Browning. Jonah Ellis can show you something as a rookie. You bring in John Franklin Myers. There are something to be optimistic about on this defensive line as we haven't seen in a little while with the Broncos. But it's something about those two guys, losing those two guys and Randy Gregory and Frank Clark, that most definitely kind of changed how our season was going.
For sure, and I was going to touch on that. Like, the defensive numbers for the Broncos are skewed because when you think about how this team became a competitive football team down the stretch, right, how they became an 8-win team, it was running the football, and it was their defense. Now, I do agree. We're talking about a 5-takeaway game against the Chiefs, 4-takeaway game against the Bills, 3-takeaway games against the Vikings and Browns. Like, that's 4 consecutive weeks. That's not replicable. I do not think this is a good defense. However, the defense did improve as last year progressed. I don't think I'm as high on the pass rush as you guys are, though. I'm still low on this front. I still don't think it's a good run-stopping front. I still don't think there is a dynamic pass-rushing talent there. Maybe it's Baron Browning. I'm not necessarily convinced, and I think if you're comparing him to other teams' top edge rusher, like he's definitely on the low end there, and nobody around him really impresses me. So I am worried about the defense. I don't want to rain on the parade with Bo Nix because I do think that he looked good in preseason. I am confident in him being a good rookie starter. I also think some people might be getting a little carried away, and I do think that he might be closer to his ceiling than a lot of the other guys who we're talking about in this class. And I think that means that he's probably going to be a solid starter in this league to me. I also think Sean Payton is a great dude to have as your first coach in the NFL. I do think the experience and the polish, Logan, as you mentioned, like, he's a good decision maker. He is going to make the right decision with the football consistently, and he's made some nice throws on the run. He can execute an offense, right? And it's not like he is talentless. It's not like he's without arm talent, without mobility, because he's solid in both those categories. I just don't know that he's doing anything at an exceptional level or that there's an area where he's going to get dramatically better. Like, is he a quarterback who, when we think about the current market, 4 years from now, you're going to want to pay $50 million a year? I think probably not. I think he is probably a guy who's going to sort of take those mid-sized contracts.
Drew would pay Daniel
starter.
Jones like $40 million.
Oh, my God. We're not getting back to this.
He's the 16th highest paid quarterback. That's not that bad.
It's not good. It's pretty bad.
The only one paid less than him is Geno. That's the only one that deserves to have more money than him. Other than that, go look at the list. It's not bad. All right, go ahead.
All right, but all I'm saying is, you see, there are guys who are better than Danny Dimes, so you don't want to be paying what you're paying them still. Generally, I think overpaying these quarterbacks is more of a problem. There's not a lot of underpaid quarterbacks out there. Also, Baker. 100%. Baker's way better than Danny Dimes, and he's paid less. So, anyways, I think that's where Bo Nix sort of falls. He's going to be a solid starter throughout his career, but I do think he and Sean Payton can help salvage this offense. I do like Javonte and McLaughlin in the backfield. I think the run game will have to be the backbone of this offense, but still the line is pretty mediocre. The receiving core is not good. I don't mind Josh Reynolds, but I think, as you say, Drew, a lot of guys are just sort of overtasked. They're going to be asked to overperform their abilities. Everybody's sort of scaled up there. So there's no chance for this team to be a good football team, right? I have them winning 4 games, but I'm not necessarily pessimistic about the foundational pieces here. I like Sean Payton if he can just wait it out long enough to when he can really put the pieces in place here. And I like Bo Nix. I just don't love Bo Nix, and basically everything around him is in a pretty rough spot. I do want to do a quick exercise when we're talking about these rookie quarterbacks. For the guys who we expect to start this year, so Penix out of it, J.J. McCarthy, of course, out of it because he's hurt, presuming that Drake May is going to start because he's going to start at some point, how would you rank those guys? Caleb, Jaden, Nix, May. 1 to 4, how would you rank them?
Go ahead, Logan. You can start us off.
Are you going based off
For this year.
this season?
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
And let me ask a follow-up here. Within the context of their
Within their
offense
context,
around,
how much do you expect them to succeed? How well do you expect them to play this year?
Caleb would be my 1.
Agreed.
Bo would be my 2. Jaden would be my – or no, excuse me. Drake would – I don't know. Jaden actually is a way better offense. I like Dre considerably more than I like Jaden, but Jaden's in a way better situation. I'll still take Drake 3 and I'll put Jaden 4, but I like all these guys. I don't think anybody's going to have like a disastrous rookie campaign. So yeah, I'll go Caleb 1, Bo 2, Drake 3, Jaden 4.
I'll go Caleb 1. I'm torn between 2 and 3, but I'm pretty confident I'm going to go Bo 2. I'm going Jaden 3 for the rushing upside. The offensive line for the Commanders is horrendous still, and his ability to get outside, and although maybe sometimes he may escape the pocket too quickly, we'll see that rushing aspect definitely improve his season as it goes on. It's marginally better than what Drake has because he does have Scary Terry. I don't love the offense as a whole for the Commanders regardless.
Yeah.
But I would go Jaden Daniels at 3 and Drake May at 4. And I don't think that's an indictment on Drake May. I think Drake May has the ability to be the second best quarterback in this draft class. He is that talented, extremely underrated athletic as well. I just think that the situation around him is simply too bad for him to overcome in his rookie season.
Yeah, he's in the worst situation in football offensively. I think Caleb's obviously one, right? He's the most talented and in probably the best situation. I mean, the receiving talent, the line's been upgraded. Yeah, he's set up to have, I think, the best rookie quarterback season ever if he lives up to the expectations we have for him. I'm going to go Bo too. But I really want to go Drake May. I think Drake May is a way better talent than Bo Nix, and I do think he's a guy with a way more upside, but already it's just like jaw-dropping, the physical tools that he has, and he's smart, and he can move, but he's in the worst offensive situation imaginable. And again, he's not going to be your week 1 starter, so from that perspective, I guess I'll have him below Bo, but I do have much more faith in him long-term. And I'm going to go Jaden 4 just because I do think that Drake is much more polished as a passer. I think that he is a much better arm talent and overall thrower of the football. And Jaden's situation isn't good, man. I mean, that line is bad. You lose Curtis Samuel, so like it's just Terry in that receiving core now. I don't really believe in the run game. I think the run game will be okay. He can rely on his legs, which is a good thing for rookie quarterbacks, but I just prefer Drake a lot as a talent, and there's not enough going in Jaden's favor situationally for me to take him over Drake.
I don't know. I'd be kind of surprised if any of these guys have like a really, really bad year. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if Drake had kind of like a Josh Allen rookie year or something, but
yeah, but he's so much better as a passer than rookie Josh was.
I agree. And Jaden, I do like the fact that Jaden has Cliff Kingsbury as his OC. I think Cliff is going to draw up quick hitting stuff to get the ball out of his hands early, you know what I mean, to make up for some of the shortcomings of the line. But I think I'm confident with those rankings.
Can I also ask you guys a question? Let's say Bo Nix's ceiling is Jared Goff. If
That's
I'm
awesome.
a Broncos fan, I'm happy with that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Goff's
I mean, because it's not like
really
you
good
overdrafted him. It's not like you overdrafted him, right? You took him 12th. He was the 6th quarterback taken in the draft. I think that that's a good outcome. I think that that's not unreasonable to expect.
It's also like it's been the biggest need for you guys, and I also like the fact that you took someone who was so pro-ready, right? It's like when Mitch went, top 5. Mitch started 11 games in college, right? Like Bo Nix has way more experience than traditional rookie quarterbacks. He's just played so much more ball. I like the pick. And legitimately, that's the other side of the coin. If your defense plays the way it did down the stretch, Russell Wilson was an active limiter of this offense. I don't care what anybody says about the 26 TDs to the 8 picks. I mean, that is...
By the way, this is Logan Camden speaking to himself 2 weeks ago when he was trying to talk himself into Russ as the Steelers quarterback.
You could legitimately, if someone wanted to and had the time, they could make a Skip Bayless, Aaron Rodgers debate between me and Russ.
You literally could.
I would
Sean
argue-
Payton held him back in this offense. Russ held Sean Payton back. You could do it with Logan last year in real time to Logan in the offseason, because last year he was hard on Russ.
3 weeks
this
ago.
offseason, he was
ago,
talking
man.
himself in, and before he had taken a preseason snap, he was all in defense of Russ, and now he's all the way back out. It's been a remarkable arc to witness.
It kind of goes hand in hand with what I also wanted to say, though. You mentioned it. You don't care what anyone says. It's on Russ. I agree. I don't think this offensive line of ours is bad. McGlinchey may have his moments as a pass blocker. I don't disagree there. However, he got time in the pocket. Russ just likes to dance, have a sip of coffee, then get outside, and then throw his
And he
deep
can't
ball
do
down
that
the field.
anymore.
And it's simply not going to – if we have a quarterback that wants to win in the pocket, I promise you, Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Quinn Miners, and McGlinchey, who may be my biggest question mark outside of Wattenberg, I think we are actually a pretty sound offensive line that will benefit Bo Nix as opposed to what Russ did last year, which made our offensive line statistically look so much worse than it actually was.
I mean, Russ's tape sucked. Yeah, I mean, Russ would – and I saw this in the Steelers preseason game too, dude. You would have a wide open slant. There's no linebacker. The cornerback's 10 yards off of him, and Russ is just
won't see
froze.
the middle of
Just
the field.
completely
He
froze.
refuses.
It's scary.
It's – I mean,
Scary, so scary.
It's scary. It's hard for him to see there.
I remember
He's so small.
His criticism, man. He can't even see over the O-line,
Tua's
dude.
the same height as him, but Tua dots the middle of the field.
Tua can't throw outside the numbers, though.
That is going to be proven wrong this season.
We're lucky we didn't get into the Tua debate, man. We could have had
I
a
was
real
hoping
Tua
we
debate
would've.
here.
See, I have two of my guys.
Yeah.
Tua's number one. I love him to the day that I die. But I've kind of adopted Daniel Jones as my second guy because I feel
Good
like,
little buddy.
you got to have your above average player. To me, that's Tua. Then you got to have your mid to maybe less than mid player that you ride for.
I love it.
You have your cream of the
Baker.
crop. To me, I'm taking Caleb underneath my wing as the cream of the crop prospect that I do love. Trevor Lawrence, people are starting to underrate him, so now that's kind of entering that conversation. Herbert also is one of those cream of the crop that I'll go to ride for. He's in that similar category with Herbert where people underrate him, but I think that he's still one of the best talents in this league. But you have your cream of the crop. You have your slightly above average. That's Tua. You have your mid, and that's Daniel Jones, and I'll go to bat for that man any day of the week.
I love it.
I'm done. I'm not going to –
Do you guys have those, or I'm crazy?
Oh,
No,
dude,
for sure,
for
bruh.
sure. Also,
Who's your mid to below average guys that you'll ride for? I'm curious.
in the NFL, I don't think I have as many. But Logan last year was all in on Baker. That was a good one.
That's a
Baker,
great one.
Well, because everybody wanted to take a. I mean, Carson said that the Bucs are going to be the worst team in the NFL, I think, and then everybody was out on Baker, and I went to bat for him.
That was a great one.
I guess Gardner
I think
Minshew would be my below average. Like, I think Gardner's like not a. I've always been a Gardner Minshew guy.
I think my mid dude right now might be Geno, because I really like Geno, and I feel like a lot of people act like Geno's not even a starting quarterback. Like Logan said that he would take Russ over Geno a couple weeks ago.
Please say you were lying.
Yeah, I'd take Geno.
He was high. He was high. He was high.
I tried to delude myself into thinking Russ might turn back the clock, man. It didn't work.
I'll say this about Geno. I think Geno is in that, 13 to 17 range of quarterbacks. So, to me, that I guess that is mid, but there's so many great quarterbacks in this league that I still look at him like he's
too
an
good?
above average quarterback. I do think so.
So here's my take on the Daniel Jones thing then. I don't think I have a guy like that in the league right now. I think for the most part, when a quarterback shows you that he sucks over multiple years, he sucks. And we can look at the situation. But even in a bad situation, a quarterback who is worth paying as a franchise guy, which is really all that matters, right? If you're a stopgap starter, it's like, okay, there's a lot of those guys who in a certain situation, Sam Darnold might be one of them this year. And we know for a fact that Sam Darnold sucks. Most of those guys, you can blame the situation, but individually they are showing you their fatal flaws as well, because there's a level that the good guys overcome even in bad situations. And the Daniel Jones don't do it. The Sam Darnolds don't do it. The Zach Wilsons don't do it. All those guys, I just tend to be out on.
I think the last guy I'll give a shout to is Mason Rudolph. I actually think Mason can play ball. I'd go to bat for Mason.
You might have just cooked. Yo,
Yeah,
that
Mason's
last
solid.
5 games of the season
Bro.
from Mason was a movie.
On time, making big throws, hanging in the pocket. I mean, I think I'm not saying he's like an above average starter, but I think like a Gardner or something, he could be like a spot starter for a team. And I don't know. I mean, if Levis gets hurt, Mason isn't a bad option whatsoever.
Why didn't you guys bring him back?
Who knows? I wanted him to get a shot at the starting job, if I'm being honest.
I'm not even joking. He probably is better than Russ and Justin Fields.
He might be. He might be. That's not a bad take.
Why do you guys think Carson Wentz has taken guaranteed backup jobs the last 2 years? Not to say that I'm a Carson Wentz guy, but like he is easily better than some of these dudes who are talking about starting week 1.
Would
you rather have him or Darnold?
Gardner? Would you rather have Carson Wentz or Gardner Minshew?
I've seen Carson Wentz in a Commander's uniform. He wasn't good.
No, he wasn't good at all that year, but he has reached heights even within the last few years. Like 2021 Colts, I think the numbers definitely overrate him.
Yeah,
because he
also
wasn't a good
gagged.
offense.
Yeah.
But he did. That's true. But over the course of the year, he was fine. My point is, once we're getting into this, once we're doing the mid-off, I think Carson Wentz has a seat at the mid-off table.
So that's your guy. I respect the Carson
Wentz
as
but
your
also,
guy.
I guess. But I don't really like him. Like, I wouldn't want him to be my starter. I'm just saying, if we're going to talk about Danny Dimes and Gardner Minshew, let's get Carson Wentz in there. He can play with those guys.
I don't love Daniel Jones the way that I once did because of situations like this, like the podcast that I've had, where it's just me getting shit on constantly about it. But you know what? Sometimes you have to be there and you have to ride. I've been through the mud with Tua. People said that he wasn't a starting level quarterback.
You're back in the mud with Tua. You're back in the mud with Tua after that playoff
He led the
game.
league in passing yards, was top 5 in touchdowns. We're here. And he just got
what
paid.
happened when it mattered?
And people lost their fingers, Carson. Have some respect for those people.
Dude, I was damn near in that same weather the next week in Buffalo watching my team get their heart ripped out. It wasn't that cold. I don't want to claim their hardship.
That's crazy, man.
That is crazy. How many people went to the hospital? Like 7 or something?
A lot of them. And you wanted Tua to go out there and perform up there with Patrick Mahomes. Can we have a little level of sense?
I mean, we can talk about all the games against playoff competition, all the games against high-level
Can we
defenses,
not?
but we won't.
Let's
won't. Drew, to spare you, we won't. We won't go there.
I
We already
appreciate
did that with Joel. If you guys want to hear 3 guys agree and pile on Tua for 15 minutes, go watch that. We won't do that to Drew right now.
Thank you.
Drew, as always, thank you for coming on. You are the man. Everybody go check out Pick a Side. We love these dudes. They make awesome content, and they're locked in. So go follow them on YouTube. Go watch all the full shows. Go watch all the social clips, TikTok, Pick a Side. And anything else that you want to plug, shout out, say before
First
we
off,
let you go?
Shout out to Nerd Sesh. I love these guys. These are my brothers. This is my 4th time, if I'm not mistaken, being up here on Nerd Sesh.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a part of the fam. He mentioned it. There's a lot of content that you guys don't even know that I'm a part of with Nerd Sesh. I mean, these guys are, to me, one of the best that there are. I mean, there's very few that have the knowledge of these 2 guys, so I always feel very grateful every time they ask me to be up on their show. You guys are the best. I don't have anything to shout. You already blessed me enough there. But listen, Nerd Sesh. She nerd on my sesh until I pick a side. Simple.
Well said, dude. Appreciate that, Drew. You guys really are the best as well. If you guys don't already watch Pick a Side, I promise you, in my opinion, it is the best blend of genuine ball knowledge with hilarious, wild entertainment. Drew brought some of it here today, right? I mean, we had an extended debate against Daniel Jones that was way more heated than it needed to be, but a lot of good points were made. There was a lot of knowledge shared, so that's why I love Pick a Side, and you guys are all great guys. So appreciate you, man. Everybody go check out Pick a Side. Everybody go support Drew and the fellas. And if you want more of our content, check out our YouTube channel. All of our full shows are here. All of our NFL season preview content. We're almost done with our division previews now. We do still have NBA content, bunch of rankings throughout the summer. I just did an in-depth video on Chris Paul, why he is greatly misunderstood, his greatness as an all-time legend. You can go and check that out. You can listen to the show across audio platforms. Follow us on social, TikTok, Instagram, @NerdSesh, to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, trivia content that we do just there in a shorter format. And you can check out our merch at thevolume.com. You can also join our Discord. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. One last shout out to Drew. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And I've been Andrew Velez.
And this was Nerd Sesh.